artists are here with us, Minu Iranpur, Jalen Esari, and Nazgul, that I can see right now in this grid in front of me. But I want to start with, I mean, I was in a residency like 2014 in Warsaw when I met Anna Patak. We knew each other before. And during this 1 month residency, we talked and we did some visits, some collaboration. It was very inspiring. And then we came back few months after that residency. She came with an invitation to be an associate curator of the project that she has been planning to work on, and that was called Dust. So my response to Dust was, because their approach was like more toward dust as a matter and different interpretations. I mean, social, political aspects. They've been working with artists from Iran, um, from Belgium, from Poland, and so on. So they, in the meantime, I was trying to cover different aspects of dust, because when it comes to this geography, this region that we are in, it also has different readings that I will mention in the course of this presentation. How do I look at it, and how do I try to make a difference from what we have already, or what was reflected in the work that was commissioned. There was, although I didn't end up doing the show, participating in the exhibition as an associate curator, then later New Media Society was asked to be participating as an artist. And then we were looking at it not as a finished product, but as an ongoing process. So since we had a team, I mean, Dustopedia is not only my project, but it's a collective of various people that has been working the past 6 years on the idea, more like 5 years, I mean, since 2015. So the result would be that we didn't show the Dustopedia. It was like kind of complicated, and it was like very open, and we were thinking of Dustopedia as a kind of an encyclopedia on dust, but with different chapters and with multiple entries from different people, different thinkers, practitioners, filmmakers. So the idea came about later. When this didn't happen, we didn't stop working. When we were working on citizen journalism, for example, how dust storms are documented through anonymous videos uploaded on social media, on YouTube back then, or if we can find any alternative bloggers or citizens who are taking the chance to express themselves about what is happening. And in some areas of Iran, it was happening on the basis of like daily life. It was becoming their routine. It was not just like one storm coming in. And so there was one chapter that we could, Sarah mentioned, she saw this part. We had videos that we could gather from the internet and print out from the official coverage of the microdust crisis, and decide what people had to say about it. So this was one part. I myself had a look at in our archive to see where it can lead. Also, we had a different idea to look at the Iranian cinema, the representation of dust, explosions, particles, and how technologically or how artificially it has been reproduced on the silver screen. So that was the other take that we could do, we made a list of different films, different scenes from movies that we could, that one of them actually end up in this program, which is the film Killing the Rabid Dog by Baron Desai, which I will come to it later. But this is one shot from a storm taking over in Tehran that it will basically in few minutes, it will cover the sky dark. And I saw from the images that you have similar images, maybe from another city, a more desert city in your exhibition. But we did an installation. This is only a part of it while we were still installing it. We have a wall in the New Media Society. We call it the black wall, or like a blackboard, that we would do archival exhibitions, archival installations, parallel to what is happening in the space. So basically, they're using the space as a kind of like a study room, a kind of a library, and so on. So we could do related project in the space, but at the same time, as we are hosting in New Media Society, we're hosting various events now. It doesn't interfere with that. And then there was also another chapter. Later, Anna Putak came back to Tehran, and when she saw how extensive Dustopedia was, she invited us to contribute to an online magazine in Poland. It's called Obeyk, and this is one of the commissioned texts by Nebras Hovezavi, Dust and Mysticism, where she looks about in the writings of Ibn Arabi and Ghazali and some other Iranian mystics and thinkers, to have different readings of like what dust means from a more mystic point of view. So there was one, and I really encourage you to check it. Is it online? It's issue number 7 on Obeyk magazine. And then beside that, I made this moving dust, initial version of the moving dust, that it is on Obeyk magazine as well, as an essay on moving images works. And also beside that, I explain in this geography, how can we look at dust in order to understand things, understand how the things that are happening to us. For example, I was trying to think of dust as a signifier between the center and the periphery, because in the central Iran, or some areas that are affected by also this microdust, I mean, you see that the dust is the center, the center of the city, where the power is concentrated, is always cleaned. You always clean it as a manifestation of power. And then you dump the dust that you collect from the center elsewhere. You dump it in the periphery, or you hide it away. You try to put it somewhere else. And then when the dust comes, when the dust goes up in the air in the desert, it's not a threat. It's not even in the news. But when it comes to the center, when the sky of the capital gets dark, it's a threat. So, I mean, we were thinking also of the dust that has been risen from the ground versus the dust that is like settled on this stuff. I mean, one side would lead us to the archive, to the term collecting dust, and the other one is something that like an uprising, like something like a movement that it could interrupt things. The other things that I was like looking at, it was like, can we see dust as like interference in the waves, in the communication waves, like the waves they are projecting to obscure the satellite transmissions, TVs, etc., in order to slow down or jam the signal? Or can we look at it as a noise? Can we look at it as a camouflage, as a strategy for survival? Like when also you remember, we have like this, when there was a fight, they didn't want to animate the fight, and then there was like a cloud of dust. with like some things coming out of it. So there were different entry point to the dust that we could look at it, and then to see how we're affected by environmental side effect of dust, but also it has something to do with petropolitics, with how we manage water, how we distribute water in which lands. Some areas that the oil has been discovered and they were underneath the marshland recently in the Khor al-Azim, that there is also the environmentalists are worried about this digging for oil would endanger the habitat of different species and the environment which is at the stake. And of course, there is a force of always to dig more, to export more. But this process eventually slowed down in the past years, and you know why. So, I mean, going back to the program that we have, as I mentioned, we showed a first edition online in 2017, I guess, on Obeyg magazine. But then when we had the installation here, there was a program to watch. It was more or less about 1 hour. But then I changed a few things. I added, gradually, I added few works to it, and then started to make it travel. We have an invitation from Han Gallery in Shiraz, and which you see the poster in brown here. And unfortunately, we lost the gallerist like just 40 days ago. He was battling with cancer. Morteza Mahallati, I wanted to mention his name and his kindness for inviting us. And this started like kind of like a series of invitation after one another. So when we were in Shiraz and we were accompanied by artist Tessa Knapp, German artist living in Köln. She gave a workshop, me too, and then while we were there, folks at the Yadegaran Gallery in Kerman invited us, and then after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we moved there, and then we went when we were there, people from Bandar Abbas and the Persian Gulf, they invited us. And these are some of the scenes from different screenings that we have from the. In the one in the below, when you see there is a older architecture, is the Portuguese castle in Hormuz Island, where beside the project, me, Nebras Hoveyzavi, and Anaita Ekmet, we did a workshop with our local artists, and some artists also already traveled from different cities to join, and it was a very incredible experience. So, and after that, I mean, Minou is here. She's a curator and artist, also one of the participants of the project. She kindly invited us to Isfahan, to her studio space. It's called Mehregan Studio, and we did it 2 times in Isfahan. We showed the program, and now we are here. We are here with you guys. And I hope that you already had time to watch the program. The program will remain on New Media Society website for people who, just in case if people missed it. But I'm going to talk about very shortly about the works in the program and what we did afterward. Like, because there is another program in response to Dust has been curated last summer. And there was also a radio podcast. So moving Dust, I mean, the way I try to compose programs is like, I want to take, I mean, because normally when you have this screening format, 1 channel screening format, you have a linear structure. In order to see it, I mean, you start from some minutes and then you arrive somewhere else. So the program here starts with Arash Khosrownejad, and this is also shows one aspect of the things that I was talking about, this signal interference in his work called Cancer. He's a musician and composer as well, beside a visual artist, video artist, and designer. So we started, it's an entry point to, we know that maybe a storm going on, something is wrong, that you see takes us, transports us visually and musically to the next. And we arrived by Minu Iranpur's experimental film done in 2000. The date is wrong here. I think it's like his earlier work of Minu. I think it's 2004, 5, if I'm not mistaken. And after, this is called Bain, meaning in between. And when we arrive this kind of state of limbo, state of uncertainty, we meet Ali Momeni and Robin Mandel work Smoke and Hot Air. Smoke and Hot Air is a computerized smoke machine, is programmed together with the feed of news about conflict in the Middle East, and it translated into smoke signals. So when you, it's a site-specific project. So every time you run it, because it was reading different feeds from what is going on in the region, and the threat of war or the actual war happening, it translates by a mechanism is programmed to translate those lines into smoke signal, and eventually it will fill up the room when there are more of these signals going on. So, and then there is an apocalyptic aspect of dust, and there is also religion interpretation of it. I mean, when everything becomes dust, there is also in religious books. But also here, Amir Ali Moebbinejad is using Mike Lee's film Naked, and the dialogue of it, while on the top of the particle he filmed eventually, and then the way he edited it is just that you're like looking at the theater, the conversation enhanced by this particle. I really like this piece. There are different versions. There is inverted version of this program, and then there is actual, so you can see the particles. So there, for the exhibition, he suggested that we use the inverted version. We are here with next one was two pieces by Anita Hikmet, one of two of her early pieces, Argebam, which is a citadel which was partially or to a great degree destroyed in the BAM earthquake. And she takes in her camera, slowly walks in the landscape that we're witnessing, but only at the end we know that where she is. We think that she's like a mountain climbing on a hike, but when she moves back and turns around from the top of the hill, you see that there was once a city, a construction, a castle that turned into a landscape, like, I mean, becoming dust in a way. And then the other piece, which is like earlier than this, is called Trace, which is a journey in the night when you're passing to ruins. Again, I guess this is in Kerman, in Shahdad desert, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I do I say the name right. And when only arriving in this landscape in the early morning, in the twilight, when you know that also she mentions in the text that this is one of the last standing areas against the Arab attack in the Zarathustrian times, in the ancient Iran time. So here we arrive the latest addition to the program. It's a short piece by Jale Nesari. Jale does work a lot with found footages and poetry. Also, after this, she started to work more on environmental issues. She has a great body of work on working on the Iranian cinema footages from before the revolution, and editing experimental, very interesting and touching work. So this is her take on Hafez poetry. It's called Ghobar Kuye Yar, or the dust from the beloved path. And this 2-minute collage is also transport us from to show different aspects of the catastrophe caused by this microdust. We have Arash Fesharaki's piece, Workers Say Goodbye to the Sun, which is also has a different readings on how Tehran is never slips in a way from being demolished and being built up all again, and all the dust and particles created by it. And there is like some poetic moment that he captured while the workers are actually destroying the building that they are standing on. So this is a very short but very touching moment by Arash Fesharaki. This is the film that I was talking to. This is online in our Vimeo account, and you can still watch it in our. We thought to remove it because it doesn't have subtitle, and it's just like a film extract directly as it was on a DVD that was distributed in Iran after a few while. The movie has been also moderately, I think, shortened, and it was not shown. It was shown a few years later in the cinema, which I also saw. And this is the moment that this woman confronts this real estate guys building towers, and they have a interesting interaction about a travel check, about a check. But this is not the story. The scene and the scenography was really inspiring. It's this 9-minute section of the movie. And then we arrive after this, slowly arriving from outskirts and outside of the city. We arrive in the city where Saman Khosravi has been witnessing demolition of an old house from his balcony, this apartment, and he displays also an affection and attention to the workers who are working after the dust. In the dust, when he zooms in, you can slowly see the workers that are like working very close to this crazy demolition machine in the picture. We have another piece. This piece actually was submitted to us as a part of Limited Access Festival by Arya Farajnejad. I didn't know him, and I'm really happy that we get to know each other about this. And Arya is putting up like a video performance. Again, a short response. The man shouting to the storage of matter gathered in front, and gradually you can see that this eventually gone in the video. And the last two pieces that I want to talk about before closing shortly after is this silent piece by Tessa Knapp, which is orchestrated and arranged totally in the studio. It's a poetic play of lights, camera, and the lens of her, beautifully shot. And we have this in her open studio here, and when I saw it in real, I asked her if she would lend us to work to um, to be on the tour when we go to other cities as well. And this is the last piece I see. It's called "You're an Idiot." The name is taken by Nazgul Emami. The name is taken from a virus. The sound is composed by another artist. I will ask Nazgul to, if she likes to, she can add few words to it after my presentation. And this is like a kind of a closing that it completes the loop. It matches when you show it on a loop. It arrives at the place that it fades out, and Arash Bosronejad's piece at the beginning starts, and they have also something to do with noises, disruptions, and interference. So a few years after that, we've been invited to do a podcast, and me and my colleagues here, it was by a project called Radiola, which was shown in Al Serkal Avenue in Dubai, and they were commissioning different podcasts. So I discussed it with my colleague Bahar and Nadifar, and she wrote about her arrival at the New Media Society, because when she came shortly after, we had some pipe problem and some severe reconstruction needed to be done in this space. And then we had to pack everything, we had to transport everything. And we've been living with people who are helping us with the construction. And we arrived in a moment that we are also, how important is the maintenance, how important is, and where she writes beautifully in the piece. And we also asked different sound artists, musicians, to lend us their work. Some of them, they created pieces for us as a response to my proposal. Some of them, they had been ongoing, they have ongoing projects. And then also the sound from the Moving Dust program was partially used in the podcast. I really recommend it. It's 45 minutes, but it's interesting to listen to. And there were, it was very timely for us also to look back at the Dustopedia as if it's like a different chapter, like a sound chapter of what we have been already working on. Besides, while we have Dustopedia, here at our space, there were parallel programs happening by the collective Rokhdad Taze documentary. There's a documentary collective that they have screenings, panels, and discussions. And we showed Puriya Jahanshad, one of the founders. He chose 3 works by Mohammad Reza Fartusi, Iran Southwest, which deals with the Hurul Azim problem, the drought, and the issues that caused the local people tremendous difficulties. And then we had also 2 films by Farhad Varahram that he showed. It was about water, and it was in Sistan and Baluchistan, another area in Iran. And the other one, 33 years after he first shot an ethnographic film in some areas, he revisited that area and rewatches the film to see, to focus like what has been happening in the climate-wise also, besides social and political aspect of this image. The last program that we did this summer, and here I'm going to close, it was a program, The Dust to Come, that it was to look at the mistake that we have done in a micro and micro level, and also to speculate what kind of a future are we hoping for, in a way, while we are while we have been so careless and so irresponsible in a way, and while also we by consuming more, by uh, creating, or also some of the artists try to also take a refuge in the future, or in a kind of a science fiction approach, which is like becoming very trendy. But here, this program has sort of like critical approach to it by different artists. Arash Khosronejad is there, Anaita Hekmat, we have there, Arash Hanoi, Nasrin Nasser, Mariam Khatun, and Shoaib Memani, and two digital artists from Shiraz, Milad and Mohsen, besides Ramin Rahimi and Enal Salehi, Nazain Arifur. So this was the project that was done, was invited, was created in response to an invitation by Mosaic Rome in London. And I'm gonna close here, as we were we are very happy to be able to show the program while we have been working on it. I see a lot of parallel initiatives and approaches, and I'm happy that Sarah kindly invited us to join the program. We've been talking since early stages of their project. Of course, their project has been, she will tell us, that has been shifted in different ways since they started. They wanted to show part of the project in Tehran, and then all these crazy things happened in 2020.
Well, I still hope this is happening, Amirali.
Yeah, but yes, I mean, and now it's a good point to stop, and I will give the floor to you, and also I will be here, and if we can, if any of the artists want to add, I see Arya is here now also.
Please,
hi Arya.
yes.
If you all want to, any of you want to add something, because I'm really grateful that we have been in a long journey together with this program since 2 years now. Yes, now it's the first international, like virtual international appearance of it, and we hope that we can show it later in Berlin.
Yeah, I hope so too, physically, with you on a stage presenting. Thank you, Amirali, for your presentation of that very complex and long-term project. I'm happy we could make this possible online, at least, and that I could again dive in a little bit. I have seen the exhibition in Tehran. That makes me really happy, of course, and I really hope that in the future, because Sandstorm and then there was Dust, our exhibition is going to travel as well, like your film program is traveling, like sand is traveling over the borders. So we'll be in Berlin next year for sure, and hopefully, I knock on wood, in Tehran in the future. And maybe some places else, we'll see. But exactly, first of all, I wrote this in our chat. If you have any questions, please let me know. Ask your question and I will read it, and Amirali can ask, or ask me a question, I can also answer. And I think I would like to start with a question. Since I know the physical exhibition, I know your video program. I don't know your latest video program. Unfortunately, I somehow missed it. So maybe I can do that in the future somewhere else. But I also missed the Dust in Media archival part. And this is super interesting for me, since when we set up the exhibition in Istanbul, 5 days before the opening, a huge sandstorm arrived in Ankara, right? And that never happened before there. So it's not supposed to happen, but it did. And for us, it was really like, it hit us somehow. And it's interesting that you said that you, because we posted that on social media and got reactions, and the people were like, whoa, that looks really crazy. Sandstorms are really a thing. And it made things visible, because when you tell about sandstorms, people are like, well, sand and dust storms, dust, yeah, dust is something I'm vacuuming at home, and it disturbs me, and it's kind of, things are in there and I don't want to know, I hate it. But sandstorms, when you see them, they are really, they're almost divine, right? So, and I'm wondering, can I see somewhere that archive of dust storm images? Do you have a conclusion? Were you ever thinking about continuing like in an academic, on an academic way, to really like let someone do a PhD or research about it? Because this is super interesting, and it's gonna be like, there will be more and more sandstorm in places where never have sandstorms been before, right? So, yeah.
I also, through Anahita Hekmat, I came across some people, they have strange habits. Some of them, they're chasing tornadoes, they're driving into some sort of crazy things happening. So, I mean, there are different sides to this, how do you say it, social presence of the dust. And then while we were doing it, we were not looking at Instagram or like, I don't know. We were trying to understand, we were of course searching with different keywords, and we arrived in YouTube's and many different pre-recorded programs that has been, I mean, files that has been cropped, longer file of a smaller file. And then people joking about it, they cannot believe, as you said, I mean, it's overwhelming. Some people are screaming, some people are just like stunned by it. And then this, we try to, with some crazy technique, we try to download videos as possible. Because sometimes, you know, although we have the addresses, but sometimes you lost the track that somebody deletes the video, so, I mean, we were in that period of time, and we didn't continue it later. And I'm sure that now, looking back, because there has been a lot of attention and awareness created around the subject when it arrives in larger cities, as I mentioned. When it happened in Tehran, nobody would think that it is their thing to think about dust. But in Ahvaz or in Khuzestan or in Sistan and Balochistan province in the south east of Iran, it's the daily life. It's the lung diseases or the side effects that people are affected by this exposure to the microdust. So when we look at this, we try to also pinpoint some bloggers, some people, and some of them, they try to raise the voice, they try to meet with the representative in the parliament. Some people also in the parliament, they did some sort of stunt to go with a mask. Now it's everyday life for everyone, but they go to it with a mask to the parliament to raise. But I mean, nothing has been done, because also apparently we realized that Iran used to pay Iraq some sort of money to deal with this dried marshland, and eventually it could reduce the. And then also the blame game started. Some people say this is coming from Saudi Arabia. Some other people are blaming Iraq, but also. I mean, we know that during the Iran-Iraq war, Saddam Hussein eventually dried out many of these areas by blocking the water, because it would create the border vulnerable. So he also created like concrete infrastructure structures in order to make the Iranian forces difficulties to come in through this waterlands, which could be done by a boat. I mean, they're like very famous films that are like kind of picturing this areas, this part of Iran-Iraq war. And
you know that, sorry, but
no,
you
no,
know
no.
that one of the pieces in the exhibitions by Tehran Platform is talking about Khuzestan and the disappeared culture there around the Al-Mashuf, the boats. And they created a VR piece where you can actually revisit the old times with the water and the reed and, you know, the old ecosystems, which they try to revive somehow, but it's not really possible, as
Yes,
you know.
there are older pictures from the 70s because there were people who were villages working on the small islands they built. As you can see, this picture online is available. And then there were basically fishermen. They were living and doing hold their habitat around the marshlands. So this partially also, these people were, I guess they were, I have to check, but I think they had a different religion. They are Shias in opposed to the Sunni majority in Iraq, and also the Saddam Hussein, because they were very autonomous and independent. He wanted to move them. He wanted to displace them in order to reduce the vulnerability of his, as he started the war, and then they were fearing possibly at a certain point some responses to his advancing. So these are like, I mean, this is, as you said, I mean, this has to be researched by people who are writing the war history, environmental history of what is happening. And there is a lot to,
science even.
Yes, and it's a lot to take in. And I think now, I mean, we're now, maybe people have images of the sandstorm on the tape. They're like lying somewhere. Maybe there should be calls of different people. Possibly they could absorb and it can be archived this different home video footages of the issue from the things that we never thought of it. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah,
We are
do
talking
it.
about maybe because
and
I mean
present
also,
it in Berlin then.
but Sarah, we have suddenly so many dust projects. I mean, you have to see. There was these things, and so some people say, I mean, are you like, what is the deal with you guys and dust? I mean, we're not obsessed with dust. Of course, we are affected by dust, all of us. And
It's
then, of course,
everywhere. Yeah. But Erfan has a question for you,
yes,
Amirali.
please.
So thank you for the presentation, Amirali. My question is that what was the criteria for choosing the artist? My other question is, what was interesting about dust that made you create this project?
Okay, first thing first, I mean, okay, as I mentioned, we have an archive. I was trying to open up my mind in order to, as I mentioned, different interpretation of dust. Some of these works has never been shown before from our archive, but some of the works we did show it, like Salman Khosravi's and Barash Fasharaki's, in different contexts of the city, for instance. So, I mean, we in the archive, we're really looking forward to invite people or invite the artists in a situation that there are other readings of their work is possible. So, for example, you can consider maybe Nazgul's piece or Arash Khosronejad piece at the beginning, Cancer, a little bit far, but when we arrive and slowly, I mean, we arrive back at them, it could be an opening for us. I mean, also some people, they did a response, and some people, I went to them to ask them to add their work to the program. For example, Jale Nesari, she created the piece while we were in Tehran, and then we added to the mobile traveling program. But the criteria, I guess, I mean, try to compose video programs that are not, I mean, also when we were, I mean, I remember when we were in Bandar Abbas, we had like a very heated debates from intellectual property to the dust to the environment. Very interesting crowd were there. So I mean, if this can create questions and create a kind of a space in which we not only look at works, but also what happens afterward, this for me is like to trigger some sort of reactions, to trigger some sort of like maybe in the future some sort of like responses in a way that it can actually have an effect. We cannot, because I mean the art scene normally when you go outside of the Tehran is much more engaging and much more inviting. That was my experience, and I'm very humble about this. But to the next question, I would say what was interesting about dust, but I think the fact that we are looking at it, we don't know how heavy it is, because we can touch it and then we understand that it's something that we can take care of, but it's impossible to take care of it. And I mean, also I was just reading last month an article when I was working on the Dust to Come program, that there are particles, there are like planktons in the Sahara, in the African, that they're feeding the planktons in the sea and Amazonia. So if this stream of like dust, which is like enriching the ocean, is interrupted by the climate change, I mean, they will eventually we have many more side effects. So I mean, for me, it was like also metaphorically interesting to look at it as something that is not, to look at it in the literature, to look at it in the different languages of computer. What is dust? What is noise? What is disruptions as per se? That it can interrupt your vision, it can interrupt your communication, your antenna might go when the storm happens. There were like so many things that it was also protective, because things can be protected under this, and then things can be destroyed or like be under the pressure of these storms and the destruction they cause. So also it's important that we have winds for in a purpose of like the agriculture, or I mean, if we don't have them, the pollens and then the seeds wouldn't spread and so on. So I mean, there are different things, and then there's human-made destructions, like chemicals, like radioactive dust, like I mean, chemical dust that has been, I mean, when the Iraq Persian Gulf War happened, they destroyed the chemicals in a very careless way when they captured some factories in Iraq, and that caused a lot of side effects on the people living around and spread. And then they could only track it in Iraq because they were there, but there were scientists who couldn't continue the same path as you mentioned. The dust knows doesn't know any border, and it just opens freely. And maybe we want to be dust.
So exactly, I totally agree. As you said, dust very often means destruction or disruption. Like you can see in your program, you have a lot of destruction of buildings. You have the earthquake in Bam, right? There's destruction. Then the virus, the computer virus is destruction. But what I've learned from the project, as well as you said, that it's actually a cycle. It's not like only the end and then there's dust and that's the end, but the dust can be a beginning as well. So when there's dust, as the example you gave right now, in the Baudelaire area in in Africa, if it goes to the Amazon, it enables life again. So this dust is a beginning again. So it makes a cycle, and that's one of the big things I've learned or about dust, and I've seen about the life, that it's going in circles. We all know that, but we don't know that about dust. When we talk about dust, we always talk about not the good side of dust, but there's also a good side about it, I think. And in the work of Kerem Ozan in our exhibition, it's called Rotor, and he's actually exactly examining this process of a cycle, which the dust goes through, kind of. And there's exactly this example of the traveling dust over the ocean to the Amazon, and he explains how important that it is, and it will stop eventually. So there is no way around, unfortunately, because we humans destroyed this cycle, right? But that's something I found very interesting, and that something I've learned also, that dust is enables equality between humans and non-humans, or lively things and not lively things, because dust doesn't distinguish between us and a stone, right? So we'll all be in that. We just 3 weeks ago, we had Michael Marder with us, and he wrote a very famous book on dust, and he talks a lot about this equality of species and beings and actors in dust. And I find that very beautiful, actually. And dust is a very beautiful thing to think about, and very complex. So that's, I think, one of the most important takeaways or takeouts I have from that project. What's your biggest takeout? So what did you learn? Because also in the description of our event, there's written that you created Dustopedia and Moving Dust to learn more about dust, and what do we know about it? Did you learn something new, and what is the most important thing you've learned?
I guess we did, yes, because we have also, I want to thank one of our, the initial team that we had been working, Borna Ahmadi, Zarwan Ruhbakhshan. At the beginning, we had a study group, because we have to educate ourselves. And then when this happened, all of us, most of us, we had a decrease in sensitivity about the subject. Because, and also for me, it was like an investigation. Like in moving image, like I wanted to see, because when you think of a subject, you're affected by the cinematic memory, cinematic representation of it, as you mentioned just now. Why do we think of it as a dust storm as something necessarily or immediately negative? Because it has been pictured so. Nobody is talking about different aspects of it, or how we can borrow certain elements, certain behavior from dust, and apply it in order to maybe to speculate about a possible political intervention. How is dust in the air, where is located close to the center, it's a threat, and it has to, and everybody is on alert. But when there is a dust storm in the desert, nobody cares, because this belongs there. So how do we treat people? How do we treat the peripheries, the different classes of the society? I also think about gentrification. You want to remove certain population further, that you don't see them immediately, because you want a clean and nice environment in some way. The same way you're using dust, but also in the other hand, some people who want to, in the mystics, that want to be Sufis and want to be selfless, they compare themselves to the dust. Or the poets, when they want to say, I'm nothing, I'm the dust of your beloved path, for example, when Hafiz put it Jala's piece. So there is extreme opposite and a big gradient in between, which you can dive in, and it's endless, like an ocean of dust, you know. But
I forgot who it was actually, but I wrote a text about non-human actors, and the author was writing how the relationship between towards dirt changed when she started to grow tomatoes. So she saw dirt suddenly in a different light, right? Because it was giving life to something else, which gave life to her. So she saw the cycle again. I love that. I have to find out who it was. I don't remember. Maybe someone knows it. Maybe Elizabeth knows it. I'm not sure, but I can send it to you. I love that. Are there more questions from you guys, from the audience?
Comments from the artists they want to add something?
Because I think Amirelli and we can continue for 2 hours, but...
No, we'd rather not. We want to hear from you.
Exactly. So Amirelli, then one more question from my side. So what brings the future? So what brings the future dust? You have now the new video program and the PhD academic Dust in Media project, which you developed right like 10 minutes ago. What else?
Well, I don't see it in a PhD things, because I mean, these things never stops, you know, this kind of research. And I mean, of course, I mean, some would feel a responsibility to deliver it at a certain point. I have a little concern here. When you produce knowledge in certain cycles of academia, the people who have access to it and the people who have the money and resources to incorporate that, sometimes it undermines the idea behind it. You know, many research has been used or had been diverted into kind of a military mindset. And that scares me, you know? I mean, of course, I don't want to open up about what science and military does together, but that's another like side chapter of thinking about us. So, I mean, because I mean, when you produce knowledge, I mean, I know maybe it's a little bit awkward to say that, but sometimes, I mean, it's important to know where the location of knowledge which is being produced and who will have access to it. Publishing it something as an exhibition which can engage more people, or publishing it as like something in the street, some slogans, stickers, I mean, different ways of like communicating with people who might need it, who might need the metaphor, who might need the fact, the science, or the people who have been objecting it, being closed about something, but now they can look at something from a different angle. And also, I don't see myself as in a position to tell people that this is discovery that I found. I mean, I share it like in occasions like this, and then so I mean, it can be like exhibition as a medium, or like different environmental activism, or different kind of. I can see it different ways, and not just immediately. So I don't know if I can express my concern, but I mean, I look at it a bit differently now, because I've also been in and out, like some academic circle, and I think it's I mean, when it comes here, it's not very inclusive. Now is in Tehran is easy. You can talk to experts, you can talk to people, but sometimes people are surprised, and this interdisciplinary approaches, which is like now is becoming very old-fashioned, and some people even call it shallow, has not been introduced here as a routine practice. I mean, some trends are arriving here, but not immediately the actions or the base that it has to grow. And so, I mean, here we try to think of it as a learning platform, but not only this, it can take different directions. When we talk about future, I mean, I think it's not very bright. The people who wants to sell you a bright future, who wants to promise you something that is not for sure, and they don't have a guarantee that this will happen. Like that's why I have been like looking at a lot of science fiction in the lockdown. But I mean, I was like also very speculative. I was like in doubt about any of this is going to happen. Some of them are going to happen. The darker ones, like what you see in Black Mirror, etc. This is becoming our everyday routines. But as if these futures are created in order to distract us from the present problems that we are dealing with, and then the carelessness that we are infected by, you know. And I don't know. So sometimes, I mean, now in Iran, also to just make it short because we want to hear from others, we hear a lot of noises, a lot of distractions, a lot of like issues that makes the news. They're going viral, and then at the same time, you can see it's pretty much engineered. You know that you have been in a state of shock all the time. You have been like always like something that overwhelms you, something that shocks you, something that makes you cry, something that makes you so. By this, you develop a kind of like a symptom like numbness toward these things. Of course, we know that there's terrible. I mean, we have to be self-critical. It's terrible to the situation with dust in the southern province of Iran or central desert provinces. But we don't. It goes away from the attention. I mean, we have the devastation stays. And we are responsible on not voicing this, you know, but just like speculating about a nice and colorful, bright future. I think it's a little bit, how to say it? It's a little bit collaborating with the status quo, you know, just creating entertainment of future, you know, or some future as an entertainment, as something that keeps you busy, keeps you dreaming. It's good to dream, of course. If you never dream, you don't achieve anything. But I stop here. So I mean, I don't know if that's if I could answer about my the relation between the dust and the future, but I think we're overwhelmed by a lot of like noises and disruptions at the moment that we cannot think clearly, and we need to.
Yeah. So I also read a lot of science fiction, and I discovered a lot of very dark science fiction actually about the future of humans and the planet. Like, for example, Dune, the desert planet, or 2312, which is also telling a lot about terraforming. So it's not too bright. I mean, maybe that's like a homework for all of us to read these two books also. And that made me think about dust and sandstorms differently also. And Gülşah said it, we're gonna produce a brochure, a publication. It's not a brochure anymore. It's quite big. And we actually put 2 quotes of these books in there, since they give, like, we have a lot of Gilgamesh, for example, or quotes from Bade Sabah. You know them?
Yes.
And then we have these science fiction quotes or presentations of ecologies and the earth or sand, right? And I think both is equally dark, Gilgamesh and science fiction. But maybe I'm just like, I chose the really dark ones and I put it in the publication. Could be like the case. But I think Gülşah appeared, and that means I think we have to stop now to talk.
No, I mean, you can go on, but I think it's a good moment to wrap up.
I think so too. So if anyone has some further questions, just send us emails or Instagram private messages. We are happy to continue talking and discussing about the subject of sand again and further, and until eternity, like sand exists until eternity. And thank you, Amireli, for joining us from Tehran. Thank you, Gülşah in Istanbul, for making this possible.
Yes, thank you very much.
Everyone for
wonderful team at Depot. I mean, we've been there a couple of times, you guessed, with different projects, and we're happy to be back there. And a big hello from Tehran to all of you. I hope for a better time, less crisis, less conflicts. Now there are conflicts in the northern border of Iran. That is like, I don't want to name, but it's crazy what is going on. But in this meantime, we hope that we meet in person and in better times. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
You're
everyone.
welcome. And thanks for the artists joining us. Thanks Minu, Nazbol, Arya, Jale, and everybody.
Thank you. It was good to see some of you.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks for bearing with me with this monotone voice and non-stop talking. So
beautiful sound, Amireli. Singing voice.
Not really.
We'll get to do
Thank
the screening in person sometime in Istanbul.
Okay. I hope so. Yeah, I hope so too. So wonderful. No question? No, don't see it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Go
Ciao.
have dinner now, guys.